Tonight, last week, 5 News reported a former youth pastor was charged with nearly 200 counts of sex crimes against children dating back to the 1980s. Following his preliminary hearing, we spoke with 2 of the pastor's victims who are now in their 30s.
And I just bursted into tears and said, he did it to me too. And from there, my mother talked to her sister and found out that her daughters were also victims.
Several individuals claiming to be victims of John W. Radcliff II, a former youth pastor now facing nearly 200 charges of crimes, are stepping forward, some breaking their silence for the first time in decades. Radcliff was taken into custody last week and now faces multiple charges, including misconduct, spanning 4 counties in West Virginia, according to state police.
Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs was probably the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Wendra Pullen was just 3 years old when she says her uncle, John Radcliff II, a local youth pastor in multiple north-central West Virginia counties, began to sexually abuse her.
The allegations, spanning the years 1986 to 1996, center around 5 of his nieces, who initially came forward with their accounts in 2004. However, no charges were ever pursued. Wendra Pullen, one of his nieces, alleges she was just 3 years old when the misconduct began and told local outlet WDTV. Seeing him in an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs was probably the most beautiful thing I've seen in my life. Carla Reinhardt, another of his nieces, told WDTV, "I thought it was normal until I knew it wasn't," describing the moment when multiple relatives disclosed similar experiences. The alleged victims assert they have waited decades for justice. "I have been ready to testify for 30 years, Pullen said. Radcliff had been out on bond following a September arrest, tied to an unrelated complaint from 2018-2019 in Nicholas County. Meanwhile, his nieces and cousins re-engaged with law enforcement to rally behind the latest victim. Captain R.A. Maddie, a spokesman for the West Virginia State Police, told Newsweek that the investigation is still ongoing and that further victims are coming forward.
And until 3 days after my wedding, I got married February 28th, 2004. It was 3 days later. My mom called me over to her house to let me know that my sister, who was in the hospital for mental breakdowns and issues, had told what our uncle had done.
Maddie stated that Trooper R.C. Watson launched the investigation on October 28th of this year, during which interviews were conducted and statements were collected from the individuals claiming to be victims. This information was used to establish probable cause and obtain arrest warrants, he said. James Hawkins Jr., Radcliff's attorney, told the New York Times that the charges are predicated on unsubstantiated victim accounts. "We look forward to the opportunity of vigorously defending the case, and at the conclusion, we are confident that Mr. Radcliff will be exonerated," he said. Hawkins said the allegations were unrelated to Radcliff's work as a youth pastor and said the 2004 investigation determined there was not enough evidence to proceed. According to him, his client could receive a life sentence or more than 100 years. Kathy Radcliff, Radcliff's 52-year-old wife, is free on bond despite being charged with knowing about the mistreatment. Radcliff is being held on a $1.7 million bond after serving as a youth pastor at several churches in West Virginia. While investigators try to understand why the 2004 case was not prosecuted, the matter will go to a grand jury in March or July. The West Virginia youth pastor faces numerous charges spanning 3 counties, including allegations involving relatives that date back over 30 years, according to state police. John W. Radcliff II's wife, Kathy Radcliff, faces charges for allegedly being aware of the misconduct but failing to intervene, the release revealed. The counties of Braxton, Lewis, and Harrison are where the alleged crimes took place. According to state police, more charges are still pending. and the investigation remains ongoing with more victims coming forward. Kathy Radcliffe is being held on a $75,000 bond, and John Radcliffe, 57, is being held on a $1.7 million bond. Both are at Sutton's Central Regional Jail. John Radcliffe attended a preliminary hearing on Friday at the Lewis County Magistrate Court. According to James Hawkins, Jr., Radcliffe's attorney in the Lewis County proceedings, the charges pertain to alleged offenses involving 5 of Radcliffe's nieces, reportedly committed between 1987 and 1996. These accusations, Hawkins clarified, are unrelated to Radcliffe's role as a youth pastor. Radcliffe is adamant about his innocence and looks forward to the opportunity when he can present a defense on these charges, Hawkins said in a telephone interview. Whether 52-year-old Kathy Radcliffe has an attorney who could comment on the accusations against her in Lewis County was not disclosed by online records. According to the state police, Trooper R.C. Watson initiated an investigation into John Radcliffe in October, following up on a case originally pursued by another trooper in 2004. The statement provided no specifics about the outcome of the 2004 inquiry. WDTV TV reported that no charges were filed at the time. "We're trying to figure out what happened with the 2004 case and why it wasn't pursued then," Hawkins said. One of the accusations against the wife of a former youth pastor who was facing almost 200 offenses against children was dropped on Tuesday. Kathy Radcliffe, married to John Radcliffe II, initially faced charges of exposing obscene material to a minor and acting as an accessory in a high-profile case spanning multiple counties that has recently come to public attention. She was exonerated of the accusation of showing obscene content. Lewis County court filings state that John started mistreating several young girls, several of whom are his nieces, when they were just 3 and 4 years old until they were about 12 years old. Throughout their childhoods, John forced the girls to perform close activities on him and mistreated them in other ways. All of the girls, now adults, alerted authorities about these episodes. The girls came forward in 2004, according to court documents, but the probe never produced any results. One of the victims recounted an incident where John and his wife, Kathy, forced her and her cousin, who was of a similar age, into their bedroom. There, they were made to watch a pornographic film while the couple engaged in explicit acts. The girl described fleeing the room to hide, only for Kathy to later seek her out and inquire if she was all right. Several victims informed the police Kathy was always conscious of everything that was going on. At John's hearing in Lewis County on Friday, the charge of displaying obscene material to a minor was dropped, as the law prohibiting such actions had not yet been enacted at the time of the alleged offense years earlier. During the hearing on Tuesday morning, Kathy's bond was revised from a $75,000 cash-only requirement to a combination of $50,000 cash assurance and $25,000 personal recognizance. The state requested that, if released, she be placed under home confinement. Her case will now go to circuit court after she waived her preliminary hearing for the accessory allegation.
And at that point, we decided to go together and file a police report.
That initial report was filed 20 years ago in March of 2004. At that time, no charges were filed against Radcliffe. So for the next 2 decades, Wendra and the other victims say they lived in fear, avoiding their uncle at family gatherings.
I thought it was normal until I realized that it wasn't.
On the other hand, several prominent megachurch pastors in North Texas have stepped down this year following accusations of mistreatment and other criminal activities. In addition, other religious figures within the Dallas-Fort Worth area have either resigned or encountered serious repercussions due to a series of alleged moral failures and unresolved misconduct. Below is an ongoing list of Texas clergy who have been publicly scrutinized in 2024. Taryn Dames, the ex-senior pastor of North Dallas Community Bible Fellowship, was taken into custody on May 2nd, facing charges of soliciting prostitution. According to Cara News, Dames allegedly contacted an undercover officer and offered $150 in exchange for sleeping with him. The arrest followed his arrival at a motel location provided by the officer. In a statement, the church said it removed Dames from the staff due to a moral failure. Tony Evans resigned on June 9th from his leadership role at the Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship in Dallas, a congregation of 10,000 members, citing an undisclosed sin, according to the Austin American-Statesman. Evans said he had committed no crime, but that he did not use righteous judgments in his actions. On June 16th, Jack Graham, the senior pastor of Prestonwood, made a sudden announcement that Mike Buster, the executive pastor, would be retiring after a remarkable 35-year tenure with the church. Located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, the prominent Southern Baptist megachurch is home to 45,000 members, including figures like Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and several conservative politicians. The church has firmly rejected rumors alleging Buster's involvement in any financial misconduct. Robert Morris, the founding pastor of Gateway Church in South Lake, a Dallas suburb, stepped down from his prominent role on June 18th following allegations of mistreating a young girl in the 1980s. Cindy Clemishire's story was published by Wartburg Watch, a digital publication that reveals misconduct in churches. It contained claims that Morris, a friend of Clemishire's family in Oklahoma and a traveling preacher at the time, started mistreating her on Christmas night in 1982 when she was only 12 years old. According to Clemishire, 54, the torture persisted throughout Oklahoma and Texas for over 4 years. Morris admitted to the Christian Post that he was involved in inappropriate behavior with a young lady when he was in his 20s. Morris said in a statement that the close encounters happened on several occasions and that the situation was brought to life in March 1987. Morris later served as a spiritual advisor to the Trump White House after becoming a megachurch pastor. At its height, Gateway Church had 9 facilities in Texas and 2 more in Missouri and Wyoming, with a weekend attendance of 100,000 people. Following Morris's resignation, 4 church elders, including his son James, stepped down in July as a law firm was hired to investigate the allegations. James's wife, Bridget, also left her position within the church. Additionally, Morris's son-in-law, Ethan Fisher, revealed intentions to rebrand Gateway Church Houston as Newlands Church in 2025. Fisher, who is married to Morris's daughter Elaine, announced the change. Since the news broke, Gateway Church has reportedly seen a 20% decline in its congregation. Morris has not been charged with any civil or criminal offenses and has yet to issue a public statement. In June, Lakeside Baptist Church dismissed Luke Cunningham after discovering he was accused of mistreating a young one at a previous church. According to WFAA, Cunningham had worked as the student pastor at Turning Point Community Church in Lubbock, Texas, from 2016 to 2020. Cunningham, a former youth pastor at multiple Texas churches, was apprehended by U.S. Marshals on June 19th. He faces charges of misconduct, aggravated mistreatment of a young one, and a second charge of indecency with a child through close contact, according to Cara News. The incidents are reported to have occurred between 2016 and 2018. Lakeside Baptist Senior Pastor Mark Forrest said in an email to Cara News, "We believe that when we find a wolf among the sheep, including another who may be called pastor, then the true pastors must step forward and bring about discipline. We have done so, and we encourage all other true pastors to act with integrity toward God and the church, protecting the members and the little ones among us from harm." On July 7th, Stonebriar Community Church declared that Tony Camarota had resigned due to a moral failure. In an email to members, the church said that Camarota, a former associate pastor at Stonebriar, confessed to church leadership of a moral failure. According to Adrian Ashford of the Dallas Morning News, Ashford said, "He is deeply remorseful, but his sin disqualifies him from serving on our staff as a pastor." According to CBS News, Ronald Goines, the former lead pastor of Arlington, Texas's Koinonia Christian Church, reportedly handed himself in on July 25th after the local police department filed 2 arrest warrants for him. According to Kira News, a woman's outcry that was reported to the department in June allegedly prompted the allegations of misconduct and indecent mistreatment. Cross Timbers announced on July 28th that Josiah Anthony had resigned as lead pastor due to inappropriate and hurtful actions towards members. The church told WFAA that Anthony's alleged actions did not include any children, physical or sexual interactions, or any illegal activity to our knowledge. However, CBS News reported that elders accused Anthony of having a concerning pattern of behavior, communicating inappropriately with women, and that elders learned about more inappropriate comments he made via text messages and social media that they said were sexual in nature. In August, founding pastors Brian Hackney and his wife Jamie, as well as former Cross Timbers executive pastor Byron Copeland, resigned. Although there have been a series of transitions, we want you to know that our elders and leadership team have a renewed energy, and our staff has a forward-facing posture, the church said then, per WFAA. In September, senior pastor Scott Crenshaw was dismissed from his position at a non-denominational church after accusations that he had been looking at inappropriate material online, as confirmed by his attorney Mark Lane to WFAA. Lane has refuted the claims of Crenshaw engaging with pornography, clarifying that the pastor was merely browsing something on Instagram. The lawyer planned to take legal action against the church and its elders to seek restitution and damages for destroying his client's career. In 2016, New River Fellowship Church in Fort Worth announced it had fired Crenshaw for having inappropriate images on his work computer, and thus was not qualified to lead the congregation anymore, the Wartburg Watch reported at the time. Stephen Lawson, the 73-year-old prominent pastor of Trinity Bible in Dallas, was fired on September 19 from the megachurch after he self-reported an inappropriate relationship that he has had with a woman, church elders said in a statement. According to Trinity Bible's website, Lawson and his wife Ann are the parents of 4 children. He spent nearly 30 years preaching in Arkansas and Alabama before taking on the role of teaching pastor at the Texas Church in 2018. Craig Stone, the youth director at Willowwood Church, was taken into custody on September 25th, facing charges related to child pornography possession and indecency with a child through physical contact, according to the Dallas Morning News. In August, a parent and child told police that Stone, age 63, was engaging in inappropriate behavior with teenagers. Other teenagers informed detectives that Stone might have pornographic pictures of minors on his computer, and one male teen accused Stone of touching him. According to a police press release, after detectives investigated Stone's house and the church, the priest reportedly admitted to touching one victim and possessing nude photos of another. According to CBS News, Marvin Scales, a former youth pastor of an unidentified Waxahachie, Texas church, pleaded guilty to mistreating 4 juveniles and was given a 50-year jail sentence without the chance of parole. According to authorities, a 14-year-old girl's 2023 birth marked the start of the Scales probe. Authorities were informed by staff at Baylor Scott and White Medical Center, Waxahachie, that Scales was overly involved in the hospitalization procedure. After examining DNA evidence gathered under a warrant, police were able to confirm that Scales was the father. Josh Howerton, senior pastor of the 6th largest church in the Southern Baptist Convention, has seen hundreds of congregants leave his church this year following a controversial sermon in which he joked that women should obey their husbands on their wedding night. After apologizing for the remark, Howerton found himself facing accusations of plagiarism, with critics claiming he copied the apology from Joby Martin, lead pastor of the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida. One of the summer's most talked about stories in North Texas continues to unfold into the fall, as yet another local church leader finds themselves in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. David Scarberry, identified by the church watchdog site WatchKeep as the staff evangelistic outreach leader at Revival City Church in McKinney, was arrested last week and charged with continuous violence against family. He told Kira that the charge stemmed from false accusations. Scarberry's story doesn't end with these latest charges, however. Kira also reported that Scarberry spent 5 years in an Oklahoma prison after he was found guilty of using an offensive weapon in a felony, and for 2 additional substance felonies in 2002, and that his ex-wife filed for the Domestic Attack Protective Order in 1994. Revival City Church is not a large congregation, nor is it one of the many megachurches that have long dominated the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In the past, Scarberry's arrest might have quietly stayed out of the media's eye. Since Tony Evans, the prominent pastor of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, stepped down in June after confessing to an undisclosed sin, North Texas has witnessed a troubling and ongoing exodus of pastors, many leading large, well-known congregations, due to a range of moral failings and even criminal behavior. Shortly after Evans's resignation, Robert Morris, the best-selling author, television host, and pastor of one of Texas's largest churches, Gateway Church in Southlake, also stepped down after revealing he had mistreated a 12-year-old girl in the 1980s. In August, we highlighted some of the now-disgraced pastors in a report examining how churches and victims of clergy misconduct might begin to heal. UFAA has been monitoring pastors and church leaders caught in controversy, with the list now growing to 17. Scarberry is the latest addition. This troubling trend has captured national attention, fueled by the high profiles of certain pastors and the consistent nature of the controversies. The New York Times featured a story on the issue late last week, which included an interview with Ed Young, the outspoken and often controversial pastor of Fellowship Church, one of the most prominent figures in the region. In his typically blunt style, Young describes the wave of pastoral indiscretions and misconduct as like the unbuckling of the Bible Belt. So, that's all from today's video. If you enjoyed it, remember to leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section.